I found the Communist Party looking in the bushes. Now, I mean, I am going to approach this. Right, wait a minute. Hey, hello. I'm going to approach this with kindness and a friendly spirit of good debate. I'm going to see what they automatically think I am, because I am dressed quite smart today. Hello, it's Johnny Vedmore here. How are you? I have a coffee and I am dressed quite smart, so let's see what the Communist Party makes of me. But I found them hanging out in the bushes. Out here in the beautiful world of what is Bute Park, there's a food festival going on over there, and just down here is the Welsh College of Music and Drama and the east gate of the castle. Yes, the east gate of the castle, which is really wonderful. It's a beautiful walk, a beautiful stroll, and I found hidden in the bushes the Revolutionary Communist Party is hidden in the bushes. I love this. They have chosen the right place. It's the shade, but they've hidden in the bushes. So I'm gonna go and see them, have a conversation, see what they make of me. I don't know what I am in that extent. I can explain like hyper-global socialism really well, and I understand the past and etc. Hello. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I found you lurking out here in the shade. I'm interested in speaking.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, how's it going?
Yeah, no, it's going well. We're just doing a promotional video for like a day school that we're putting on in the.
Oh, that's why you're lurking in the bushes. You see, when I'm walking around and I find the Communist Party lurking in the bushes, I found it quite funny, because I'm like, they're just hidden over there in the bushes, waiting, lurking, They told us bad things about you guys, and look, you're out here in the park lurking in the bushes. I'm joking. I am joking. Hello, how are you? Would anybody like to sell communism to me and my audience? Yeah?
I mean, we can talk about what we're doing right now. I mean,
cool.
We have like
I'm not interrupting, am I?
Yeah, no, this is fine. We kind of have to wait till the music dies down a bit anyway for our videos. But yeah, I mean, we're doing a campaign at the moment to wipe out the Epstein class.
I am one of the lead Epstein researchers in the world. I've seen that go up. I helped research One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1 and 2, which is about, work by Whitney Webb, which is about the rise of the Epstein class, exactly, through Robert Maxwell and other mentors. And I go on podcasts and I talk on shows about the Epstein network. I've been writing heavily about it for 7 years now. So I do understand that, the Epstein class, but I find the Epstein class is on every single front.
Yeah, I mean, we would say that really when we're saying wipe out the Epstein class, what the Epstein files exposed was that there is this like ruling class at the top of society which have control over like the economy. They are like the worst of all of humanity, drive us into war. Like all of this is being done by a ruling class in society, and ultimately it's the working class who produce everything in society, who have the same interest to end war, suck the environment, have a safe like environment for their families and all of this. And we would say through revolution, which we've been seeing across the world very recently, we can have the workers rise up, take power, take over the heights of the economy and run society in the interests of ordinary people, as opposed to in the interests of like the Epstein class, in the interests of profit.
I understand that's you put forward a good sell. I would say that the Epstein class itself are trying to make something that looks more like techno-communism, as in communitarianism, something which is an agenda. I did a lot of articles about Klaus Schwab, who's the head of the World Economic Forum, his training under Henry Kissinger's program in Harvard, and him being given a mentor like John Kenneth Galbraith, and they went back into the idea was create stakeholder capitalism for a route to tokenization. And I mean, would your solution or the solution of the Communist Party just look like tokenization?
I mean, I would say like what we're seeing today, often people kind of like to think, okay, there's a new term, there's a new thing that capitalism has developed into, and it's all like all these different ideas. But I would say what we're seeing right now is exactly like the stage of capitalism that we've kind of gone into. It's kind of exactly even as Marx wrote back in like the Communist Manifesto, you get the accumulation of wealth at one pole, you get like monopoly capitalism, you get a larger and larger working class. Like all of this is, I would say, exactly in line with that. And I mean, in terms of like what would communism look like what like right now you can imagine like we already have all of the technology and industry that we would need to supply everyone across the world with all of the basic things they need, and also to advance science and technology. But currently it's in the hands of a very like small amount of people. If that was in the hands of the working class as a whole, and we could plan rationally the entire economy, then
there's a problem being is that rational planning of society is what I'm talking about on that front.
But
and a lot of it
in whose interest, in what way would, like, for the capitalist, what is rational is not the same as what is rational for the working class.
So within capitalism, I mean, we had Keynesian economics, post-Keynesian economics, the crony capitalism of what we got nowadays, and that's already led to stakeholder capitalism, which have been sold and marketed and pushed forward since probably late 60s, early 70s, and now into something that looks like an organized, what they offer, because they're choice architects. These people decide the architecture of our choices. So they're giving us either CBDC, central bank digital currency, which is direct tokenization, or cryptocurrency or forms of cryptocurrency, which is another form of the same thing. So the problem is that the technology thing is that they're going towards something which will be centrally controlled, and that's something that happens within communism. That's something that would be the negative for me of communism in general, and probably far left socialism, though I am a believer that there has to be a left and there has to be a right, and they have to bounce off each other. And currently, right now, everybody is living in what is called a third way political system, which has been since Clinton got in 1992, 1993. He said, I'm no longer a left-wing party, we're a centrist party. They purged the left of their party. The same happened in the UK with Labour. I mean, we went through the whole Jeremy Corbyn thing. That was a purge. That's how third-way politics works. It brings everybody into the centre then, and then that attracts voters from the right and makes the right collapse, and you have a centrist, globalist blob that leads to a technological solutions for an orderly society.
I think that's just not correct of like what's happening right now. Like, for example,
we are in third way politics, so we are in a third way political system.
That term, whatever. Like what we've seen recently is the collapse of like the Labour Party. We've seen the collapse of the Conservatives. We've seen across the world, there's a deep hatred.
No, but that is because of third way politics. If you say, I could say, oh, communism is just a word in that way. What you've just used as a fallacy in that argument is to belittle the because what I've made is actually, I'm really well researched on third way politics, and third way politics actually exists. Good. Okay. Anthony Giddens in the 80s created something called third way politics. It's a type of politics that means that you have to pull everybody into the center, and the main way to do that is to purge the left of any political party. So
question would be, do you think that he's invented this kind of version of politics, and then that's kind of
they already implemented it? They've already implemented it because it leads us towards globalism. It leads us towards technocratic, digital, globalist, Panopticon.
Can I just say a few things? Like, I guess to begin with, like you talk about, okay, it's moving us towards like globalism. Like what we're seeing right now is a huge fracturing of world relations on a very large scale that is, you can see as well, like as I was kind of trying to say, with across the whole world you're seeing like rise of like populist parties, left and right populist parties, right? And I would say that is because, as I was saying, a deep hatred of the establishment parties that have existed for a very long time, and people are looking for a way out. And that's why you also have the rise of Donald Trump, or you like Nigel Farage, or even like Zach Polanski, right? You have
all
these
of
different
that
figures
is
that
a
will come up.
consequence
Okay,
of what happens
and
in
then-
the political system that I'm talking about,
Okay.
and the consequence of the purging of the left means that the right loses a lot of its voters and they collapse, and then comes a rise of extremist parties, and those extremist parties are kept looking as extremists, and they remain by divide and conquer, and by also they take over parties. And the Communist Party should know this, and people in the Communist Party should know that there is an undermining of parties by people outside who then become like Tommy Robinson. I don't believe he's obviously not a far right leader or anything like that, is he? He's paid, he's promoted, he's put out there. There's a load of people who are like that because politics is bought and sold at the top level, and that's our society is collapse of both sides because of a political system which isn't an illusion, and it's not. And what I'm saying to you isn't a verse. It's, you know, a lot of it is a consequence to reactionary response to Soviet style communism.
Yeah,
so a lot of it
there's
has been implemented because of
that. There's a lot
that.
going on there, but I would like to finish the point that I was trying to explain first, if you don't mind, which is that with the collapse of like the establishment parties, seeing rise of anti-establishment parties, whether it's Farage or the Greens or Donald Trump, whatever. But then with Farage, we've already seen it. Like the closer they get to a position of power, the more they end up lining up with the banks and the the City of London and all of this, and like really,
They were no different at the start, though.
Yeah.
They were never politicians, they were always bankers. They just, what I'm saying is they've infiltrated the system, and so, but he worked,
I have like quite a lot of stuff I'd like to say, but I think I don't know.
I'm listening to you, I'm listening to you and responding to the points that you make. But we're both making, and you can do the same. I understand.
My point.
I understand, but I'm just saying they're bankers, they're not politicians.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think
you have to be able to argue and talk at this level where I'm being polite to you in a political debate.
You keep interrupting me.
I know, but you will be interrupted in a political debate. That's the way political debates work.
Okay, well,
what you're describing is pretty similar to what we're saying, that there is this complete collapse of the system, there is this kind of polarization in politics, but there's actually, it's underneath all of that, there's this deep anger that's rising in society. And we're seeing revolutions across the world. We're seeing the Gen Z revolutions across Nepal, Indonesia, and so on. We're seeing class struggle reactivate in Europe, in America. What we're saying is that a revolution is going to happen. It's going to come to Britain. It's going to come to the West. It's going to come to everywhere.
Agreed.
And what we need to do is prepare in advance, prepare a revolutionary party, so that we can lead that revolution to socialism, to communism, rather than to collapse, to barbarism, to.
There's so many brands of socialism and communism that's where part of the problem becomes.
You could continue it over there if you like, because we're going to have to finish our video.
Okay,
so speaking to Josh.
Okay, I listen. I don't mean to insult you or anything. I'm just talking about things. I've got a benefit because I am a deep investigative researcher, writer, and I've been doing this for a long time. I go on shows and podcasts, and I talk a lot with people about a lot of things. But I also have to research a lot, and the political system is really important to understand. So I'm just saying that the system, like people go out and vote at the moment. And the system they're voting in, a lot of people don't even know the system they're voting in. And so the idea of what we can have in the future, well, if this is what we got now and no one really knows what they're doing or what is going on, then that's not going to help anybody. So if we just do another version of that. Yeah, anyway, come on, if you want to come over here and have a conversation, I don't mind having a conversation. Hi. What's your name?
Joshua.
Hello, Joshua. Do you always say it like that? I mean, it's in a nice way. I'm Johnny. Nice to meet you. So go on. I hear what you say, but don't you understand that, I'm just making the point that the system collapse is due to more things than just people are greedy and people are bad, and those are systemic failures that have been due to influence and a lot of corruption within power. And if you offer something else and say, it can be really banal to say, oh, we're going to go into a socialist future, or a communist future, but that just the previous iterations of that have been co-opted by Stalin, have been co-opted by Mao, have been co-opted by the worst people who have not just genocided a couple of people, and genocide happens all over the place all of the time, I can tell you that, but not genocide just a few people, genocided millions of people. So for people who hear that, it's really hard for them to get over that fact.
I'd say at the root of all society, throughout all of history, there's been the economy. It's like, how do we struggle, how do we produce what is necessary for society to survive? And that is the same with capitalism. And so everything, all these social phenomena, all the political phenomena, it comes from this basis in reality. Literally people struggling, producing what is necessary to provide. And so what you have at this time is the contradictions that are inherent in capitalism. So that's the fact that the private ownership of profit, it's taken from the working class. The working class are the ones that produce all the value. We're the ones that go into the factories, we go into our workplaces, provide all the value in whatever roundabout means that may be at this point. And the capitalists, the ruling class, they're the ones that take all of that value. And at the beginning of capitalism, it was a progressive development. They'd reinvest this into production, and they'd invest into the means of production, as we call it, like factories, making things better. But nowadays that doesn't happen. Nowadays kind of monopolies have formed in all of the different nation states, where they have, as you say, you're describing this process where the bankers are flooding into the politicians, into the political parties, whatever. And that process is very real. That's what's happened. But it's tied towards money, it's tied towards capital itself. And they've formed all these political parties in their own image. And from the beginning, I'd stress, the fact that the state, the capitalist state, which formed in the bourgeois revolutions, it was formed precisely for this purpose, to provide the basis for capitalism, to have the military protect the capitalist interest, or the interests of capitalism in general, on the world stage.
So far, nearly all of this can be said about communism and socialism.
We'll get to socialism and communism, but at the moment, that's what it is. We've got the police force, they're enacting the rules of private property. We've got the military, they're going out on the world stage and they're enacting the interests of capitalism on the world stage, or a specific nation's interests of that specific nation's capitalists, bourgeoisie. And so what you have is this situation where, I guess generally the crisis of capitalism, where the capitalists they're driven by competition to produce as much as possible, and to produce it as cheaply as possible, which means paying the workers as little as possible, which means they're actually undercutting the very market that they're then selling to. And you see in these crises and these loops, these cycles, you get a crisis of overproduction, that's what we call it. And through the crisis of overproduction, you see this process of monopolization, where the biggest company tends to absorb all of the other ones, because they're like cutting off their factories, they're laying off their workers, so the big one can absorb all of that and they can become...
Is that inherently unfair?
Inherently unfair. It's not a question of inherently unfair. It's a question of how does capitalism work.
I know, but if that's if it's about absorption into a bigger blob, isn't that what communist industry is?
There's something very different there, and that's because yes, this process of monopolization, what you've identified is that monopolies would be the perfect vessel for socialism, right? If they were owned by the working class, if they were controlled by the interests of everyday people rather than the interests of these billionaires, bankers, who want to siphon all the money, make as much profit as possible, and throughout that process cause massive war and destruction. Because
can I just tell you that the political ideology that I was talking about earlier, there's a point to it, a reason to it. When you're in the center, there are no political solutions in the center of politics. There's only political solutions on the left or the right of politics. So what's lost in third wave politics is replaced with austerity and war. So what we see out there, the war and the austerity that has been in place since Bill Clinton's time, is part of the output of what is third wave politics, because it keeps everybody in line and replaces the solutions that you can find within the left or the right of politics, which is why I believe a left and a right should be represented in a healthy way, and the centre ground is probably the most dangerous. Yet the left has a danger of, if forms a bigger social unit or big enough social unit, the left has a tendency to head towards that, doesn't it? The same thing.
Well, I think fundamentally what you're missing is that we're not talking about politics in the sphere of the establishment. We're not talking about politics within capitalism, which is what politics has become. They've managed to inject it in our lives. We're all grown up in a capitalist system. Of course, we're going to think about politics in that way. What we're talking about politics is class struggle. We're talking about one class versus another class, and the interests of those two classes are very different. And what we want to do is put the working class, the majority of people, in control of the economy. It's not like a political question of like how are we gonna form society, and how nice would it be? Like, no. What we're talking about is there is a class who's in control at the moment, the ruling class of capitalists, of billionaires, of bankers.
The stakeholders. That stakeholder capitalism is what we got now. The stakeholders in society are in charge of our society and make the decisions within our society.
The Epstein class, that sort of thing. And they're the ones in control of society, and their influence, the fact that they are the ones in control, drives the whole of the world into endless crisis, endless war, endless tyranny, endless raping, pedophilia, so on.
But that exists within communism, and a ruling class always exists. Well, listen, if you say if you say we haven't had a proper form of communism yet, that will be called the not a true Scotsman fallacy, which basically, because the definition of communism is a classless, stateless society, classless, stateless, moneyless society. We've never achieved that. You've never been able to prove that it could exist. Because all that's been proven is that if you go towards that, it gets co-opted by a ruling class, and it just becomes a different ruling class, and that's the evidence that I've got personally. That's my own subjective
I can talk about Russia.
belief.
I can talk about Russia if you like, but our main aim, the main thing, our program is to put regular working class people in power instead of the ruling class, because we think that working class people have this united interest in running the world in the interest of everybody. That's what we're trying to do. And I'll touch on Russia as well. Russia, the Russian Revolution, or the Russian revolutions, they were the greatest event in the world. They were the first kind of yearnings, the first expression of a socialist state. That's what they had. And you're right, they did get co-opted. Stalin did take control, but it wasn't because of the nature of socialism or communist planning or whatever. They never achieved communism. It was the fact that Russia was an isolated country out on the outskirts, literally a backwards country. It literally had only just overthrown the Tsar. It only just kind of crept its way out of...
go on.
Very topical music. It only just crept its way out of pretty much like feudalism. And so it had this massive combined and uneven development across the country, where it was a majority peasants. There was a very small working class. There wasn't much industry. And so the basis for socialism, which is the basis of, you need abundance to build socialism. To get to communism, you need to have superabundance. That wasn't there. So what they had was a socialist revolution, where the working class were put in control, but they weren't then able to start producing enough, especially when immediately upon the revolution, 21 armies then invaded Russia. So, I mean, under those conditions, what can you do but try and defend yourself and fight back? And so that's the kind of the source of the isolation. They weren't able to then spread it. And this is what Lenin was talking about. This is what the Bolsheviks were saying. They needed a revolution. Lenin literally said, I would sacrifice the revolution in Russia if there was a revolution in Germany, because capitalism is a global system. You need a global and international revolution in order to get to socialism, in order to then get to communism, to get to a classless, stateless, moneyless society. You need to get rid of capitalism entirely. And so...
listen, hey, I hear what you're saying. I again will say, well, I think the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding can't be cooked, and that it's technology has made any attempt at communism a risk of becoming some sort of techno-communitarianism, AI-driven hellhole.
Think about it in terms of the economy again, right? You're talking about big tech, you're talking about AI, you're talking about all this stuff. That's all a speculative bubble. It doesn't produce any value in society. If they were to, what you disagree?
I think that the majority of for what I do within my work, I could do 10 times more now because of assistance from complicated language models.
It's a useful tool,
language models are a useful tool. They do drive up production, but they're likely to make people redundant and unemployed.
It's the process of overproduction.
It's going to be there. Well, it's just the same within communism as well. It happens. I don't know. But is communism everybody goes to work all the time?
Tools that we've developed, like AI, where we can reduce the working day. That's in effect under capitalism. AI, it doesn't reduce the working day. It makes people unemployed. Under communism, under socialism, that would just reduce the working day. People wouldn't have to work as much. They wouldn't have to work as hard because all of the value that's in society wouldn't be in the hands of the billionaires, but in the hands of regular people.
I think that's a dream, and the real problem is and you keep saying it yourself, and it's something that I do a lot of work on, and I don't think it's a problem that can be solved on any political spectrum, is that issue of the ruling class and the fact that the people who rise to the top are the people who are the most narcissistic in society, and whichever political I did listen to whatever political ideology you go towards will always, if successful, be co-opted by the worst in society who are able to make the worst decisions and do the worst things, and that will include within communism. So the reality
how do you explain the revolutions that happen in Nepal, in Indonesia?
They should lead to some form of community-based, very small government that is autonomous in different areas to a certain degree. I see a different world which is not actually that far away from your world or their world, because technology is leading towards a point where we're all going to do a certain thing or look a certain way. But anyway,
it sounds like what you're describing is you want socialism, but you don't want to call it socialism.
No, that's not really social. I want a community, not communitarianism. I want a community-based order that respects everything within my vicinities where I live. That's it. I want my people and the people around me and my friends and my neighbors, I want them to be happy, I want them to be safe, and I want us to sort out our own problems on the ground instead of putting our faith in the ruling class. So what you say has a ruling class attached to it. What I say doesn't have a ruling class. But they get co-opted. But they do, because they get co-opted. Stalin was a ruling class, Mao was a ruling class. Thank you very much, Joshua. It's very nice to speak to you. And there you go. I found the Revolutionary Communist Party hiding in the bushes. That was a jig, that's for sure.